welcome to my studio. I'm Jessie and this is the Knit Up and Dye podcast, episode 137, Mosaic knitting. I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about some mosaic knitting that I have done. One of them is a finished project from the pile and one is a current knit along that I'm working on. Mosaic knitting is essentially color work knitting, but it's color work knitting that allows you to work with just one color at a time and not end up with a stripe. It allows you to have intricate patterns without carrying yarn, which is a challenge for a lot of knitters. Carrying yarn is about maintaining a very even tension and guessing, literally, how much you need to leave behind in order for it not to bunch up or scrunch up or have big gaps in it. It can be done beautifully, and I have done stranded knitting and I enjoy it, but really mosaic knitting is kind of the easy sister of color work. And it's great fun and has beautiful, beautiful results. The pattern that I completed, and forgive my very wrinkled shirt, I wore it specifically so I could show off this project. The pattern that I completed is the Descent Cowl by, let me make sure I give her information correctly. Here we go, find the stuff. It's the Descent Cowl by Carissa Browning, and I did the knit version. She published this pattern in two versions. She did a knit version and a crochet version. This was very, very popular. Right after Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, she issued this pattern as a fundraiser for the ACLU. And I'm scrolling through her post right now just to let you know the total raised at her last update was $41,152.10 for the ACLU. Fabulous. I obviously get all choked up immediately about that. It's such an important cause. It's so wonderful. And her pattern sales, she had specific dates that it was 100% of the proceeds. Currently it is 20% of the proceeds. The pattern is a $5 pattern. And it was designed very, very specifically to look like Ruth's collar, one of her collar necklaces. And it's beautiful work. Lovely, lovely cowl pattern knit in the round. And as you can see, there's obvious color work here. She has little pearl beads all along the top before it goes down into the chain of her very familiar collar, her Descent collar, and hence the Descent Cowl. This was fun. This was easy. It did not take a lot of time, and it makes a lovely cowl. My only meh is personal about it, and it's that it's a little bit bigger around than I would have liked. I've noticed a lot of people tuck it to wear it to get a little bit closer fit on the neck. Sorry, I'm staring at the monitor so I can fit this to show you. Some people will actually turn that entire collar down in to get a little bit warmer, closer fit. Personally, I think if I were to knit this again, I would make modifications to the pattern itself, and I would remove some of the back stitches. I would remove some of this back repeat as it's not, let's try it this way, where it's not as pattern dependent. I could easily remove a couple of repeats there along the back center and you'd never be the wiser, and I'd tighten up that fit a little bit. Very, very pretty work. The pattern is just lovely. It creates a scallop along the bottom. And you can block it flat to kick out that front lacier bit and bring those scallops down. Obviously, two colors in high contrast work beautifully for this. I have a number of new colorways in the DK weight available in my shop. This is knit in DK, and it takes less than a skein of each color. So even if you had leftovers from another project, I used about 50% of one skein and about 70% of the other skein. If you have leftovers, use them. So how is mosaic done? You're saying it's color work. There, I obviously see two colors on the same row, but you said it's not stranded. Slip stitches. Slip stitches are everything. Forgive me, it is chilly in my studio. I'm gonna throw on a sweater real quick. Brr. The beauty of having a sweater on hand. There we go, much warmer. So it's handled through slip stitches. What does that mean? That means you're passing the stitch from the left hand needle to the right hand needle. You're slipping it as if to purl and just working the next stitch. And the patterns are very clear about how to do that. That you knit one, slip two, knit one, slip one, whatever the interval is in order to get that. Then on the next round, you'll use the other color and you'll knit the ones that you're slipping and slip the ones that you're knitting. It does beautiful, beautiful work. I'm currently participating in a knit along with Unwound called the Always in My Heart Shawl by Isabel Kramer. And this pattern also uses slip stitches to do color work. I'm working mine in 3 colors, but I wanted to show you how beautiful, how intricate that slip work can be. It creates all these wonderful patterns and interactions of color without stranding your knitting. You're knitting on the back. You see a little bit of slip stitching, but no more so than if you were doing a linen stitch or a moss stitch. Moss would not be correct, but you don't see long lines as though you were doing stranded knitting. And it creates this beautiful, beautiful interactive color work. I'm enjoying this pattern as well. This is also being worked in DK weight. The pattern I think says worsted, but the worsted that she's using is technically closer to a DK. You could do it in any weight. With any shawl, gauge is flexible and you can really go. I've seen this done in fingering. I've seen it done in worsted. Quick, bulky, warm, lovely knit in worsted. And I'm holding it kind of upside down. This is the neckline edge. It does this beautiful eyelet pattern before it goes down into the mosaic. I'm loving this. I really am. I've written about it. This is a very heartfelt project for me because Unwound is closing their doors. And this particular project, I'm using some of Unwound's own. Their River Bottom Brown and their Midnight Mississippi Blue, which is this lovely color. And then I'm using my own Riparian Reverie. And intermingling them for a very, I feel like this is very reminiscent of the area. The Mississippi River runs through that area. They have a lot of marshlands in that area. And it just reminds me of being on the edge of the river. It's lovely colors. It's very reminiscent for me of the area. And it's going to be a very heartfelt memory project for me. But mosaic knitting is something that you can do easily to incorporate color work into your patterns, into your projects without having to strand. Stranding can be a little bit of a juggle. Some people strand beautifully and never have any tension problems at all. I'm not one of those people. I struggle with stranding. Anything more than 3 or 4 stitches is just difficult for me. This gives me a little bit more flexibility. It gives me a little bit more capacity to incorporate color work without it being strictly stripes. I find the charts a little bit difficult. Some of the charting is difficult for me to read simply because of the slip stitches, and sometimes I have encountered a couple times where the charting showed both colors at the same time. I'm not sure how to explain that to you, other than to say that they show the line that you're slipping and the line that you're working at the same time. So it looks more like a color work chart rather than a on this row do this, on this row do that. But certainly revert to whatever instructions work best for you. If you can read those charts readily, read those charts. If you're better with the written word like I am on these projects, do the written word on those projects. Flexibility and pushing ourselves and trying new things is good for our brains. It's good for our emotional well-being. When you have things on your mind that are eating you alive or burning you out or making you emotional, focusing on something else, focusing on a new pattern, a new design, a new technique, puts all of that thought process into the subconscious and allows it to cook and do what it needs to do, rather than being focused on and under the microscope and studied. And gives you the freedom to breathe and take a break and make something beautiful and do something fun and expand your brain and keep that plasticity in place so that we build our memory, we build our cognitive strength, we build our emotional strength, and end up with something warm and cozy and beautiful in the end. I don't have a lot for you today. I wanted to talk a little bit about this and just be here with you. I miss you. I haven't had a lot of energy to put into this. These have been some challenging times. And I find more and more that I need quiet, which is so ridiculous because there's a lot of it available. But I need a lot of mental quiet too. When you're at home alone, you think a lot more. Or if you're home with kids, you're thinking a lot more. You don't have the timeouts. You don't have the transitions that you had built into your life. I actually miss my commute. It was a transition period. It was a time where I had to focus on what I was doing, put all the crazy in my head into that subconscious and let it cook where it belonged, do something else and have a quiet. Or have focused music time where the radio was on and I sang along like an idiot and enjoyed that and released those endorphins. I'm not doing that because I'm not commuting. I commute 1 day a week. I'm having to reincorporate commute times where I commute my thought process, times where I commute my emotions into different parts of my brain. And sometimes that means I need to turn the radio on for 20 minutes and dance like a fool and sing and pretend that the dogs aren't wincing and covering their ears. Sometimes I need to just sit and stare at the wall and do nothing, like I'm in a meeting at work where there's one mind listening to what's happening. Maybe it's the news, maybe it's a podcast, and there's another mind that is just going, okay, this will be over in 20 minutes. What am I going to have for dinner tonight? We don't realize how much our work life compartmentalizes and segments and makes our day a mosaic of other colors, makes our day a different pattern and more interesting, and brings joy and light to our lives by causing little hurdles that you jump over. A lot like mosaic knitting. Isn't it weird how mosaic knitting can parallel our daily lives? Here's our weekend over here. Here's our work week. Isn't it interesting how knitting can be such a huge impact every day, more than just keeping us warm, but changing our emotions, supporting other people? I love it. I love it. That's what I have for you guys today. Thank you for joining me. I have an absolute ton of yarn in my shop right now. I just basically filled up with what would have been a trunk show worth of yarn. Lots of colors. I'm really focusing on the 3 basic bases. I have my Tap Monkey base in fingering. I have my Rumba Monkey base in DK weight. And I have my Super Wash Salsa base on worsted weight. Everything else is in the clearance section, and it's there for you at great prices. Even some of it is on the newer colorways. It's not just outdated colorways. It's not just outdated bases. There's a plethora of things available for you there at great prices. And I've really worked hard to incorporate more tonals. And you're going to see, if you're following my Instagram, more photos of sets of colorways together that interact for each other, where you could use them together in cowls and shawls and sweaters, do fades with them, so that you have a full project opportunity to choose from there with interactive colors. More colors are coming. I'm going to do more of the tonals and more interactive colors, but there's a lot there now. Go check it out. I would love to send you your next favorite color work project. I love you. Have a great week. Knit happy and add some mosaic to your life. Bye.